Hello, everyone. A very good evening to all of you. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the 15th JGLS Alumni Webinar by a distinguished alumna, Ms. Ankita Sharma, on the topic of the practice of corporate law and introduction to legal due diligence. I am Professor Shireen Moti, Assistant Professor of Law and Director of Alumni Relations at OP Jindal Global University. OP Jindal Global University was started in the year 2009 under the visionary leadership of our Chancellor, Mr. Naveen Jindal, and our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar. In a span of over 10 years, OP Jindal Global University has been recognized as an institute of eminence by the Government of India, and Jindal Global Law School has been ranked as the #1 law school in India by the QS World Rankings. Before I invite our speaker for today, I would like to introduce her and the topic for today's webinar briefly. Ms. Ankita Sharma graduated with a BA LLB honors degree from JGLS in 2015. Ms. Sharma has the experience of working at two leading law firms, Solomon and Company and Desai and Devanji in Mumbai. In 2018, she moved to her hometown Nagpur and pursued a career in litigation, where she handled several matters before the Bombay High Court, Nagpur Bench, MSME Council, Family Court, and the Consumer Court. Subsequently, she joined Artifacts Projects Limited at Nagpur as an in-house legal counsel. She has been successful in developing an independent legal practice. She provides corporate and commercial law services to various clients. Ms. Ankita Sharma is of the view that legal due diligence forms the backbone of any corporate transaction. During this webinar, Ms. Sharma will discuss about the practical aspects while working as a transactional lawyer at a corporate law firm in India. She will also elaborate on her own experience of developing an independent legal practice at such an early stage of her career. With this, I would like to invite Ms. Ankita Sharma for her opening remarks. Welcome, Ankita. We're delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you, Shireen. Thank you for having me here.
It's such a pleasure to see that one of our alumni is doing so well and you have been able to develop your independent legal practice so early on in your career.
Thank you.
You definitely have had a journey from a law student to becoming an independent lawyer today, and we would like to get a glimpse of your journey thus far. So, before we dive into the substantive aspect of today's webinar, we'd like to pick your brains regarding some of the parts of your journey which have been interesting, exciting, and which have shaped you into the person that you are today. So,
Sure.
my first question to you really is, let's go back to the beginning of your journey and ask
Mhm.
you that why and how did you decide to study law and pursue a legal career?
So, to be honest, law was never an option that I decided in my plus two. I come from an engineering background, and I did enroll up with the engineering tuition classes that we get in 11th and 12th. But it did not interest me that much while studying there. And one day I ended up going to the law tuition course class, which is the career launcher classes that we had back in 29 or sorry 2009 2010. So that's where I developed an interest for the field of law, and I thought that maybe I would want to pursue career in law. And there I started my journey. I enrolled for the various entrance exams for the NLUs, Symbiosis, Jindal, and I got through Sindhi, HNLU Raipur, and Jindal was one of the colleges which I also got through. And to be honest, the faculty was one of the main reasons at that point of time, since you were the first batch, we were the second batch. That was like one of the main reasons that we thought that Jindal would be a great option. And true, indeed, that was one of the great reasons to be a part of Jindal. So that's how I started to be a lawyer.
That's amazing. So you took a very rational decision at that point, and I'm sure, like me, you would be thanking your parents for guiding you through that decision at some
Mhm.
point. Because
Yeah,
ultimately,
sure.
at that age, you look out or up to your parents for decisions like these. So, how was your journey at Jindal Global Law School? Would you like to share some highlights of your journey at Jindal?
So I started my course in 2010, and to be honest, it was we have seen Jindal growing from nothing to everything what it is today. And the faculty there at that point of time was very supportive in helping us understand that only law is not only restricted to the courts, It is not only restricted to criminal law, because to be honest, coming from a non-legal background, having no idea what there exists in law apart from criminal law, Jindal opened me to understand that there is a lot beyond what we see in the television, to be honest. There is corporate law, there is IPR, there is environment law, there is so much else. There's constitutional law, like there is jurisprudence. So it helped us understand the different fields of law, the courses that we had, the specialized electives that we had through various, like what I should say, the eminent lawyers, like we had Justice Kachu to teach us. We had one of the ex-judges from ITLAWS to teach us. So all these courses, the professors, and the overall experience shaped my understanding, my inclination towards law, and especially corporate law. So
Yes.
that's how important Jindal was.
That's amazing. It seems like you made the maximum of the opportunities that were provided by Jindal, and Jindal
Yeah.
was also lucky to have a student in you in terms of somebody who was looking out to improving themselves on a daily basis. And I really admire the fact that you pointed out that at that point we were so unaware of the field that
Hmm.
I mean, if you spoke to anybody and said that we do not go to the court and practice, but we go to a company, and they would, draw a blank and say, what kind of a lawyer is that who doesn't
Exactly.
argue in court? And it took Jindal for us to redefine the legal profession in a way where we could see beyond the courts, because there was so much of after your liberalization in 91, the market
Mhm.
opened up, and there's so much of work for corporate lawyers.
Yeah.
So when coming to the question that how did you develop an interest in corporate law, and whether that is something that you had decided to do back in law school, or did that develop once you graduated?
So to be honest, it was a 5 year course, and we had the opportunity to intern from the first year itself, like the summer vacations and the winter vacations we got. And I tried interning at the Bombay High Court, the Nagpur bench here, district courts, and on the other NGOs and everywhere. So to be honest, through the practical experience of the internship that Jindal offered, and that helped me decide that okay, like it feels great to wear the black robe and go to the court. Gives you the Harry Potter feeling. That definitely is exciting as an intern. But then I realized that, oh, my inclination was more towards corporate law when I started with my first internship at TCS, which was a in-house internship, then a law firm internship. I realized that I want to do and wish to learn more into the corporate field. Then I selected my electives. As I mentioned earlier, our college had great electives like on mergers, on transaction drafting, on competition law, and on general corp. So all these electives that I took up, it helped me develop, understand the niche within the field of law, which is corporate law. And hence I decided to pursue a career there.
Okay, so a culmination of a lot of things led you to sort of take up a career in corporate law, and you kept at it and did internships, spoke to your professors, studied
Yeah.
and did electives in that area in order to develop your interest. That sounds interesting. So, what have been the milestones in your professional journey so far? It would be interesting to know it from your end.
Um, so I started my working in Bombay in 2015 with Solomon. And to be honest, that as a fresher, what you learn in law school is very different than what you apply in the practical field. You
Right.
think that you have to do only one document, which is only, I have to do only IPR related document, but that is not the case. You have to apply 10 other different laws while doing one particular document.
Hmm.
So, starting from scratch, starting to learn from everything, today I have the capability and ability to have my own practice. And that I guess is one of the biggest milestones that I've achieved through the 5 year period. And to be honest, while I'm working here in Nagpur, I again have Solomon itself as my opposite counsel in a deal, which was my first employer in my first job. So that is, I guess this is one of the biggest milestones I think I have, that someone who taught me today is my opponent. So that's what I see as a milestone in my career till now.
Rightly so. I mean, that's a huge learning curve that you've achieved and a huge milestone indeed that you've achieved in your 5 year journey in the legal profession. You are a first generation lawyer, and I understand that that could be so difficult to develop your own independent legal practice, but you have been able to achieve it in less than, in just 5 years, which is remarkable indeed, and indeed outstanding and appreciable. So, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to in your professional journey?
Um, so honestly, 5 years has been a good experience, and I look forward or for more growth on the career platform. So maybe to have my own individual practice, grow it more beyond the geographical locations of Nagpur. I have clients in other cities, Delhi, Bombay. So maybe expand it more. And I guess I don't draw a 5 year plan or a 10 year plan. It's about exploring how opportunities come and how life comes. You never know how. I never thought that I would be doing this, to be honest, 2 years back when I shifted back to Nagpur. So let's see how things go, but definitely to expand more on my independent practice and to have more clients from other cities.
Okay, that seems like a fair plan. So, before we move on to the substantive topic for today, just a word for attendees that we'll be taking questions towards the end of the presentation. And Ankita would be happy to answer any questions that you may have about legal diligence, about the practice of corporate law in India. So, the first question, Ankita, that I really want to ask you, let's start simple from the basics for somebody who does not have a idea about due diligence, that what is due diligence and what do firms and lawyers do when there are corporate deals in terms of due diligence.
Okay. So, to very simply put, due diligence forms the backbone of any kind of corporate transaction. Uh, be it um be it any kind of transaction that you're dealing with in the corporate field, due diligence is one of the most important steps that any lawyer needs to undertake. What do you exactly mean by due diligence? Due diligence is a check and balance exercise. It's an investigation that you do while you're doing when you're going to sign a deal, because it is a hard-earned money of a businessman which you're going to put at risk for an kind of for a business. So you need to check what kind of a profitable company you are entering into the business with. So, as if I can mention, due diligence doesn't exist in the books of law. If you say that you have constitutional law, you have the Companies Act, you have the Trademarks Act, so there is nothing known as a due diligence act. There's nothing that exists, but it is a commercial understanding which people have developed with time in the practical field to be very sure and to be very safe with their money, where they're investing, where they are getting into a new business transaction. So that is what a due diligence is, to put it in a very simple form.
All right, I mean, that's a good overview of the due diligence process. Another question that I really need to
Hmm.
ask you in this regard is that could you take us through the different stages of the due diligence process and what are some of the important points that a lawyer should keep in mind when it comes to leading a legal due diligence?
Okay, so I'll take you through an example if people would be interested in knowing that. Couple of days back, we heard a news of Baiju acquiring White Hat Junior for $300 million.
Yes.
This news was there across everywhere, and people were so fascinated by this. So it's not like that it happened overnight. It did not happen in flick. It was a long drawn process between the two companies. Definitely, before pitching in so much of money for $300 million, Baiju definitely would have understood, understand the pros and cons, the profits and loss of the company in which it is investing so much big money. So, a due diligence can vary from industry to industry. So since this was something in from an IT sector, like to in the education sector, Depending upon the sector, your due diligence category differs. Now, for a lawyer who's doing a transaction, like lot of aspiring lawyers, lot of freshers, they get very excited with the word, oh, I'm going to do due D, I'm going to do DD, or I'm going to do due diligence. Like the short form sounds very interesting, but trust me, due diligence is not very happening. It is a tedious, it is a long process, and it is a tiring process, but definitely is a good learning experience for someone who's doing due diligence. So for a lawyer who's doing transaction, a due diligence can also be a changing point where you tell your client that, listen, I have done the entire exercise for you, for the company in which you wish to put in your money. And I think the company is not a profit making company. They have a lot of losses. So if you put in money, the losses will become yours also. That is how it is in the transaction. So if a lawyer decides after his entire homework of due diligence, he thinks that it is not a profitable point for his client, based on his entire exercise, he can advise the client to not go ahead in a deal. So so due diligence can be a deal maker or even a deal breaker, depending upon what exercise, what research, what all document review a transaction lawyer is doing. So one needs to be very sure, very meticulous in terms of how they are working on a due diligence, what all documents they are reviewing, what all laws they are looking at. Because based upon your judgment, based upon your report, the other person is relying and going ahead in the transaction. So you have to be very meticulous and very diligent while doing the due diligence.
Yes, and I mean, there's one thing that many people do not take account of, especially law students and legal aspirants don't know that there are two types of diligences. There's legal due diligence and there's financial due
Financial due
diligence.
diligence,
And
yeah. Coming.
only yes, and due diligence is very important for these deals to come through.
Exactly. As I said, that due diligence differ from sector to sector. So if I have to break down the different aspects of due diligence, there is legal due diligence, there's financial due diligence. If you're looking at a company, like for example, you say White Hat HR Junior. So there is IPR involved. Like the company has built so much of reputation, brand value. You need to check at the IPR aspect also. If there is any kind of a company wherein industry is involved, you need to do an environmental due diligence also. So there are different, as you just pointed out, Shireen, that there is legal and financial due diligence. There are other subheads within the aspect of due diligence, which everyone needs to look at while doing the deal.
Yes, it's a very important piece of work, and that's why rightly you mentioned that it's the backbone of any corporate transaction because
Yeah.
nothing can go through unless your legal due diligence, you have a go ahead from your lawyers. That is the most important aspect of any corporate transaction. And that is something that lawyers typically do for the first 3 years in any legal firm. You are drilled into the TD, popularly known as aspect of it. You're working with team members, clients, bankers, and practically understanding the nitty gritties of the due diligence process. Now, a related question to our previous discussion is, though due diligence is an important process in any corporate deal and something that we have discussed at length right now, what are the main learning points to grasp which one could also apply outside the purview of the law firm practice? For example, working as an independent lawyer, because you get a different lens, different perspective. Also, due diligence is something that even if you're the most meticulous person, you are bound to make a few mistakes, and that is why there is an entire team working on a legal due diligence matter. Still, people who have been doing it 5, 10, 15 years can also miss out some key details. So it would be a good learning point for us if you could share some of the main takeaways from your experience of leading due diligence matters. Yes.
Sure, sure. So, as I just mentioned earlier, that the diligence depends upon the kind of sector the deal is into. So, let's just take a hypothetical example. If I have to say Vodafone, sorry, not a hypothetical, Vodafone Idea merger. Now, that is a merger in the telecom sector, which we have seen. If you see Facebook's investment in Geo, which happened recently. Now that is another different aspect. That's a digital market. It's a e-portal. So the areas are different, but there are certain aspects. There are certain aspects which will always remain common between two due diligence, irrespective of the industry. It's a company in which you're investing at the end. The type of documents will be same always. When you're doing a due diligence, for example, in the Vodafone Idea thing, you're learning about the telecom sector. You are getting to know a lot about TRAI. You're getting to know a lot about the statutes there. When you're doing a due diligence on a Facebook and Geo, you're getting to learn a lot about the retail sector, on the IT aspect, that is Information Technology Act. So when you gather these kind of specialized statute knowledge, and tomorrow if you come out from the purview of being in a law firm, you become an independent practitioner, you definitely are moving out from the law firm category, but definitely what you have learned in these due diligence can be applied on an individual aspect also. Like for example, today you have a client who's again in some kind of a retail sector. He might have maybe some kind of a business in two cities. He might have a supermarket, and he wants to do some kind of legal work for the supermarket. He might ask you to help him out for the work. So what you have learned from the retail sector out here, you can definitely apply. So like I have a client recently who has two retail markets, like sorry, two supermarkets, and he wants to do it online business now because due to Corona, he wants to put the services online. So now definitely what I have learned from my previous due diligence, I can explain him out here that while you're putting up your business on a mobile app, you need to take care of these regulations, these laws, because irrespective, the client size might differ, the deal size might differ, but the law will never change, be it Facebook and Geo or be it a small trader who has two supermarkets. For him, the law of having an app and giving services through an app will be the same of what Mukesh Ambani has to do it today. So that's what I'm saying. So what you learn from a due diligence in a law firm can definitely be applied through the specialized laws that you learn in the different due diligence, be it financial, be it telecom, be it environment, be it IT related or IPR related, on your personal practice, depending upon the different types of clients that you get. So that is one important takeaway that people need to learn. And while they are doing due diligence, they need to learn, grasp, and understand the law, what they're dealing into. So that is important while one is undertaking exercise of due diligence.
Yes, I mean, that's most important. And in the beginning itself, you said, when you are in law school, you're studying one subject at a time. But once you are out there, you can apply as many laws to a transaction, and you are supposed to be an expert on each of those laws. But the good thing is that you've learned the research and writing and analytical skills while you're at law school to make those applications. And if you're strong on those aspects, then you could apply that to any given situation, because there's so many laws that you cannot end up studying all of those laws while you're at law school. But what you could understand is the basics of understanding the law itself, and that's the endeavor of any law school or a legal degree. One of the important takeaways that you pointed out through the answer that you just gave is that you get an exposure to different laws, and once you have an exposure to different laws, you can apply it to multiple situations. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's actually a case where businesses are innovative, and therefore lawyers also have to innovate. For example, virtual courts. I mean, who would have thought that the
Exactly.
technology intervention in Indian courts would be so rapid, because we've been trying that for so many years. Though in the lower courts it's not seeped in, but still credit has to be given to the high courts and the Supreme Court, as well as various tribunals, including the NCLT and NCLAT, who have now gone virtual. So that is something that one has to take account of. A number of law aspirants and people who are in the law school right now, law students, or people who would want to join law, join it with the idea of seeing these legal shows like Boston Legal or Suits, or and I'm taking the example of American sitcoms because they make corporate lawyers look very swanky, glamorous. But underneath all of that is a lot of hard work, dedication, years of practice, and also a lot of accountability, especially from day one of your joining a firm or doing your independent practice or being an academic or doing research. All of those things require a lot of effort and a lot of have a lot of accountability. So in that universe, firstly, just bust that myth that Boston Legal and Suits are all
Doesn't exist.
doesn't exist. You and I know that because we have worked in very tier A law firms, and we know what life is. It's really fast paced. It's a lot of long hours of work. It's convincing clients. It is knowing your law. It's actually being on your feet 24/7, and that is your life as
Very
a
true.
lawyer. So if somebody wants to pursue law with an idea of becoming a corporate lawyer, or somebody who's actually in law school right now and wants to become a corporate lawyer, what would be some of the tips or advice from somebody like you who has done it in a span of just 5 years uh, to not only develop themselves as a corporate lawyer but also sort of go independent? Yes.
So, my advice would be simple that if you have already decided to be a corporate lawyer, then you should channelize your energy entirely on that aspect. If you're in your third, fourth, or fifth year, then you should take up courses, internships, look at moot courts or papers, anything which is in that particular field. If you are very clear in your head that corporate law is what I wish to do, and if you are like a first year student, or even you haven't ended up in a law school, I would suggest go with the flow. Like, try everything. If you're not clear in your head, try litigation. Go to the district court, go to the high court, go to an internship in an in-house, go do a judicial clerkship, like a 1 month or 2 month internship under a judge. Like, explore every other option that you have today as on the current date to decide what kind of specialization you wish to take, because that's how I decided. I thought I want to go to the court, but I thought, nee, okay, it's only for 2 months, like, okay, not more than 2 months I would want to go. I don't want to do it on a daily basis. I would want to do something in the corporate field. So decide that way. Speak to your professors. Try and understand, because there are a lot of our professors today who have been in this position, who have been a corporate lawyer, who have been in the law firms, and they know how it is. So understand from them as well. That is the first thing. And when you are in the law firm, or when you're deciding to choose a law firm, I guess there's a lot what people think that, oh, I would want to always go to like the big firms, without naming, I should say, rather. I would want to go to the tier one firm with the big package, and that's how I would learn. So, to be honest, it's not the case. So, if you end up with a job as your first job, which is not a big firm, then don't reject it. Please take it. Because, to be honest, every firm, every place has something or the other to teach you. Like, I have had experience where my first job taught me how to calculate stamp duty, how to pay stamp duty on a document. And when I met one of my other friends in my second law firm, they didn't know how to calculate stamp duty. So it's not like ki my law firm only taught me. It's just that when you are doing in a small law firm, they expect you to do every basic thing, which you might at that point of time think that, oh, this is a clerical work. This is something what an associate has to do. This is something what an intern should be doing. So at that time, you might feel, no, this is not something that I should do. And you would feel embarrassed at that point of time. But trust me, a more embarrassed situation would come later if you're an independent practitioner. and your client asks you, what is the stamp duty I should pay on the document? And you would say, I don't know. So that would be a more embarrassing
Of
situation.
course.
So this is just the example that I gave. It was not literally the case, but understand and do every single thing while you are doing a big share purchase agreement is not what matters. It is you knowing every small bit of how the share purchase agreement was done, ended, and how did the acquisition happen. So you should know each and every step as a fresher, as intern also, while you're a part of any deal. You should know every big and small point of a transaction, because you never know where you might have to apply in your independent practice as well.
That's a great lesson in humility that you have given to our attendees today who are lawyer aspirants and who are in law school. That as a lawyer, as a working professional, nothing is a small task or a very big task.
Yeah.
Small tasks culminate into big tasks, and you should have the humility and the absorption power to not only understand the big matters but also the small matters, because the small matters could ultimately cause a huge hurdle in your legal practice if you do not have the basic understanding. Also, if you run an office and you have juniors and you have to guide so many of your juniors, and if you yourself are not equipped with the basic terminology, basic aspects of procedure, that is something that could really undermine your hard work and practice towards a client's case. So those are some very good tips, that do internships, speak to professors, really explore the field before you take a definitive decision of becoming a corporate lawyer, because
Yeah.
it's not that that's the only option available to you. It is definitely a lucrative option, it's definitely an exciting career, but you have to check your own aptitude as well. And what will make you take an informed decision really is to do internships, to take up projects, and to understand really where your true interest lies, because only then will you be able to excel in a particular aspect of the legal profession. That is great. So we have a number of questions, but before we take up the questions from the attendees, there are a few that I received through email, and I would like to take them up first. So one of our attendees who emailed me prior to the webinar is named Yash Gupta, and he had a question that how do you secure internships at corporate firms? And an added question is that how do you then crack the interview for a top corporate law firm and eventually move into independent legal practice? I think Ankita, he wants to take a cue from your career and become you in the future. So please share your own experience and how can Yash develop and Yash and others develop themselves into corporate lawyers as successful as you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Yash, for the question. So first, about how to get internship while you're in your law school. So if you have a dedicated internship cell in your law school, then definitely you should approach them. They would be the first-hand contact, because they would have a pool of law firms in different cities, different tier law firms, and they can help you pitch in your CV at these law firms. Follow up with them, draft your CV accordingly. They can guide you on that aspect as well, of what should be included, what not should be included, to make your application look a good, lucrative application to the law firm. So that is one aspect. Second, as of today, there are so many websites which post internship opportunities. Like there is Locktopus, there is Bar and Bench, there's Legally India, there's Internshala. I guess I know at least these. So if you go to search, there would be more. So that is another way. And second is that irrespective you send your CV, don't expect an answer to come in a positive or a negative immediately. Have little patience. They would be also flooded with CVs. Follow up with them after 2 weeks. Ask them politely how it is, and that's how you can do that. Speak to your seniors. Your seniors might help you. If you have alumni in any law firms, then speak to them. They can help you guide, understand if there's a vacancy in a law firm. And as I said, even in an internship, don't go to a big law firm if you would want to keep, oh, I just want to intern in this law firm. Nothing else will work for me apart from this. It's about experience, building your CV. Don't go by the big names only. So That is how you should look at. Second point about your question about how to crack interviews. So to be honest, I did not crack any of my placement interviews in college. I did get PPO, but it is not a very stressful thing that, oh, I should get a job during my fourth year or my fifth year. So it is not like that. The first important thing in any interview, be it an internship interview or a job interview, is that they will never ask you anything which is outside your CV. Your
Very true.
CV is the document on which your assessment will be done, because any recruiter, be it in a law firm, be it in a company, be it even in litigation, they know that you are just a law school student. You don't know the practical world. So they would just want to know what you have practically learned in your internship. So they will ask you questions related to your CV only. But if there is any kind of a development in the current affairs, which you have worked in the past in any matter, then definitely you should keep yourself updated on that as well. So these are the two main tips to crack any interview. Read the law if there is any kind of an updation, and just do your CV well. They will never go beyond the CV.
Yes, those are very fine points, and it gives us glimpses of your own journey. I would like to add from my own experience. So, back in my fourth year, I was placed with the erstwhile Amerchant Bombay from Jindal Law School. I'm an alumna myself, and I've also worked at Nishit Desai Associates, which is an international law firm. I've worked as a corporate lawyer myself. So, two things that I think worked for me in my interview, there was a group discussion and then interview, is really what Ankita pointed out. I would like to second that. Don't put anything in your CV that you're not comfortable with. And if you're putting something in your CV, for example, you're writing that I worked on the RERA Act and I drafted a petition, then you should have a couple of points ready to speak to the interviewer, to converse with the interviewer about RERA and what did you exactly do in that internship. Another thing that interviewers really look for, firstly, your grades have to be intact. If you're sitting with the topper, say top 10% of your class, you're already facing a competition. It is about a competition within your batch when it comes to campus placement. So you should have, if your grades are low, you should have a reason to justify
Yeah.
your low grades, and you should be confident about your legal knowledge. So be confident. Your knowledge should be at par with anybody else who's sitting for the interview, taking the interview. Attitude and energy, these are some of the things that recruiters look for in a prospective lawyer, in a person who they would like to hire. Also, always be prepared for group discussions. Also, I feel, Ankita, many a times these campus placements are taken lightly, and later on,
Exactly.
everyone runs for lateral entries, which are far more difficult than campus placements. Because either they are very afraid of giving an interview, or second, they do not prepare for the interview well in advance. So stay behind your Office of Career Services and find out when the firms are coming, and start preparing 2 or 3 months in advance to the day zero of the placements. Because
Yeah,
trust me, guys, campus placements are much easier than lateral entries, which means that you try to get an internship or a job on your own. So that is something that is a good takeaway from this discussion. Another
exactly.
thing that,
So,
yes,
sorry.
please,
Yeah, please,
please
Anna.
continue. So please continue. Yes.
No, so as Shireen just said that, yeah, campus interview definitely, because your college itself is helping you reach that point where you wish to go. And it is definitely a neck to neck competition, because there are so many good students, there are so many bright students. But as I guess it is important to understand this thing, that you should be positive enough. If in case things don't work out, it is not the last thing. So definitely try, understand, make it a good opportunity. Try to solve whatever comes in front of you with the interviews and the placement offers. But definitely there are different ways as well. The college placements, yeah, laterals later when you're into the field, it is difficult at times. But individual applications also work, so that also works out. So but yeah, as I said, your CV should be the main criteria, along with the grades, as Shireen just pointed out.
Yes. And of course, whenever you send in an application, and very good that you pointed out, it has to be customized, which means that your
Hmm.
research about the firm should come through. It should not look
Yep.
like a draft that you send to every other firm in Delhi or Bombay or any other city. It should look like you want to work for that particular firm. There should be no grammatical errors, no typos, and your CV should be well formatted. These are things that students take lightly, but this is something exactly what firms look at. Whether this person can write and research well, because your first research skill is whether you are able to research about your employer and
Yeah.
then draft a nice email and send it across. So those are some of the tips to secure an internship, a job at a corporate law firm. One of our attendees, I'm just getting the name, is Manak, who wants to really know that within corporate law, there are diverse things that you can do. Of course, there's general corporate practice, but a corporate law firm does much more than general corporate practice. So, what are some of the fields of law that you advise some young lawyer to take up or prepare himself or herself for when it comes to joining a big or medium-sized corporate law firm?
So there's a term used which is called a full service law firm. If you go to see, people will say, I'm a so and so is a full service law firm, or so and so is a boutique firm. So when you speak about a full service law firm, they will have different verticals under their law firm, which would be litigation, which would be general corporate, which would be capital markets. Capital markets means something dealing with listed companies, SEBI, compliance and all. There will be litigation, there will be real estate, there will be project finance. So these are couple of different branches that you will see in a corporate law firm. Most of the law firms have all these branches. There is IPR, another aspect. So all of these are different branches under the field of a corporate law firm. I should say litigation is a separate aspect of that. But if you are intending to join a corporate law firm or rather I should say a law firm, then you can look towards working in either of the departments if you have prior experience in your college in terms of taking any subject. Like for example, if you have recently done IPR and you think that, oh, IPR is very interesting, I might want to understand it more practically, then maybe you should look for a law firm which is a IPR boutique firm, or you should look applying towards the IPR division of the full service law firm. So that is one aspect that you can look at. Then people also go towards being a real estate lawyer, which deals into all these real estate work. So now RERA is also RERA is a big thing in that. People wish to do project finance. That there's so many infrastructure projects coming up. There is so many metros coming up. So all of these are examples of project finance. There are law firms, especially having dedicated teams working for project finance. I know our college had an elective by a project finance elective. So a lot of my batchmates did that elective, applied to project finance teams of different law firms. So these are the different areas that you have. And I would suggest that if you're applying for an internship or a job, as Shireen initially said, that do your research well, and depending upon your area of interest, you should make an application or you should look after what kind of more niche area you want to do in corporate law.
Yes, that's amazing. I mean, that gives us an entire overview of what are the opportunities available within a corporate law firm.
Yeah.
But I would just like to quickly add that when you're doing general corporate practice, that is the main bread and butter of any law firm, and all other practice areas do contribute to the revenue. But general corporate is something that you will end up doing anyway. Even if you are working as an employment lawyer within the firm, you would at some point deal with corporate law. So that is something that you should always be aware of, and that is something that you will be asked to do as a young lawyer. Later on, of course, you can specialize as a tax
Specialize.
lawyer, environmental lawyer, employment lawyer, or even a sports lawyer. Because today you have boutique law firms wherein they have only a couple of areas that they are focusing in on, as opposed to the full service law firms that you beautifully explained to us. So those are some of the things that you could do in a corporate law firm. So, Ankita, one of our attendees, Uday, is asking us that,
Mhm.
there's often a trajectory to a young law student to becoming a lawyer, wherein first they join a law firm and then they work for 2 or 3 years, then they move in house and probably stay there or then become independent, right? So it's very rarely seen, but I think the trend is slowly changing that a fresh graduate of law will uh, start his or her career as an in-house legal counsel. So Uday wants to know whether it's advisable or is it better to go to a law firm first and then go to a company and become a part of the in-house legal team.
So, Uday, to answer your question, I would suggest that first thing, if you have opportunity still to intern at, like if you're in your third, fourth year, you have the opportunity to intern 2, 3 times more. I would suggest intern in a law firm and an in-house and decide which one interests you more depending upon your area of interest. Secondly, if you directly go to a in-house, depending upon, see, in-houses also a company will have a specific industry in which they are working. So if, for example, you're joining Future Group, so they would definitely be in the retail sector. It's just an example. They are into the retail sector. Tomorrow, if you move out of Future Group and you try to apply at other places, an employer would be more interested from a retail sector only to absorb you, because he would know कि अच्छा this guy would have a niche knowledge of understanding of how the retail sector works, what are the legal aspects of a retail sector. If you would have been in a FMCG company or a food company, then your graph would go in that particular industry itself. So there is never a no situation that, oh, you cannot go to a in-house immediately after graduation. It is entirely your personal decision, to be honest. But if you see it from a holistic view, see, in a law firm, these in-houses come as clients. So you have clients from all different fields, from a petroleum company to a manufacturing company to a IT company to a banking company. So you have got an experience of different sectors while you're in a law firm. While you're in a company, you are working, definitely you have a lot of experience and exposure to the legal aspect of that in company, but it is industry specific. So you might want to grasp, gain knowledge of all the sectors and then channelize your energy in, oh, this interests me the most. I want to be into maybe a food industry. So you would do that. You would want to go ahead that. So that is a later decision. So as I said earlier, while you're deciding on your career between litigation, corporate, IPR, that as well, there is also a sub part that to decide the sector, you should give it a chance to explore the sectors first. Because it happens that people go and they say, though, I don't like this construction business. I have to only deal with construction related laws. So I find this job monotonous. So don't be negative by putting yourself in that situation. Explore options and then channelize of where you want to go. This is my personal experience and advice.
That is very important, and that's a remarkable piece of advice, and that is what I also keep telling my students: is that first get the opportunities in hand, and then take an informed decision. Don't decide your future based on opportunities that you do not have, because in the current legal job market, and in any job market, and this has been enhanced and amplified by the COVID-19 pandemic situation, unfortunately, that the opportunities are fewer and the competition is much higher.
Higher.
So, getting an opportunity and getting a foot in the door is much more important today than getting something that you really, really want to do. Because in my view, in my personal view, any kind of legal experience counts as experience at the end of the day, and that can be used for your future work. Because ultimately, you will be dealing with law as a lawyer, and your understanding of the practicality of law is something that you develop once you're out of law school, and it's better to get an understanding sooner than later when it comes to corporate law or any other field of law that you might choose to. Also, I just wanted to add a point on the question that was asked. So generally, I feel that when you are applying for an in-house counsel role, they prefer somebody with a law firm experience because they feel
Yeah.
that you have already got the training, and now you can contribute in a much more effective way. So you might join at a higher pay package than somebody who is a fresher, a young law graduate. So generally, a law firm experience is always considered a
A
uh,
plus point.
plus point when you're doing an in-house counsel role. Another related aspect is many of these in-house counsel roles require you to have 1 or 2 years of experience. So they don't generally hire young freshers. They would like them to get some experience and then come and join them. There's another attendee of ours who is a lot of these internship and job related questions here. So I think a lot of law students and are sort of attending our webinar today, and we're happy to answer those questions. Meghna has asked us that she would like to intern at an in-house counsel as an in-house counsel in a company. So how should she go about it? And what are the expectations from an intern during the internship process? What are some of the skills that she should develop to become a successful corporate lawyer? So three in one. So three questions. Firstly, how does she go about getting an internship as an in-house counsel? What would be the expectations from her as an intern? And what are the skills that she should develop to become a successful corporate lawyer?
Okay. So thank you, Meghna. Going one by one with your question. The first question: how to secure an internship as in a in-house. So as I mentioned earlier, also, uh, if you have a dedicated internship cell, that's the first point of contact, which will give you all idea of how you should go about your application, because it is, as Shireen initially said, that there's a lot of competition. The opportunities have reduced down due to the pandemic, and we have got into the mode of an online internship as well. So your internship cell is working 24/7 to help reach the maximum opportunity, to help you reach the maximum opportunity. So they would definitely have a pool of in-houses, of companies which are looking for interns, and they can help you make an application there. That is the first point. Secondly, as the application process goes for a law firm as well, there are a lot of in-houses which post applications on LinkedIn for interns. There are applications on Loftippus, on Bar and Bench, the same portals which have the law firm applications. So you can try looking there. Now, generally, in houses don't give internship for a 1 month period. At least my experience has been that in houses want the interns to be at least for a 1.5 month, 2 month period internship. So you should consider that aspect also, that they want you to learn for more than a month period. Secondly, what expectations do they have from the interns? So as I said, that when you're in a company, there are two things that you need to look at. They exist. Is one, that it is sector specific. So while I was at TCS, there was a lot of work which I did in the IT law and the IPR law. So it was a constant work on these two fields. There were a lot of documentations on this field. Now, second aspect is that they will not ask you to draft anything, because the first expectation that they have is they want to understand how much you understand from the subject matter that they have. They will give you review work, they will give you research work. So that is the basic thing that a law student actually does also in law school. They do research. So they expect you to help them in researches, find out the new cases or new change in law which might affect their company. So you should have a good research skill while you are joining in a in-house, or even in a law firm. Research skill is very important. And second aspect is that, see, in a in-house, it is only not the legal department which is running the company. There are 10 other departments which is running. There's marketing, there's finance, there's operations. So there's a lot of coordination which needs to go on between different departments to make one deal also work in a in-house. So that is something that, if you wish to have a career in in-house also, you need to understand that you need to be a good team player. not within your department, but even with different departments to have a good career and to build a good practice as a in-house counsel also. So I hope that answers the question of
Yeah,
Nidhi.
that was very comprehensive and I think quite convincing for somebody who's looking just for a path to begin and start following. And I appreciate your answer on that. So there was a very enthusiastic attendee who has sent in a couple of questions. Her name is Sakshi, and though we are discussing about corporate law, she wants us to answer the question: then how can she become a successful criminal lawyer, and what are the skills that she should develop to become a good lawyer at this point? I know this is something that is not coming from a personal experience, but we have seen, stalwarts like Rebecca John, and we have seen Jethmalani, Ram Jethmalani, and all of these people who have really redefined criminal justice system in our country. So, what are some of the tips that you will give this young lady in terms of developing into a successful criminal lawyer?
Uh, so I would suggest that if you have done your basic courses, the IPC at least IPC, then and you're very sure that you wish to have a career in criminal lawyer, being a criminal lawyer. So I would suggest that start your internship in the criminal law field, which is interning in the district court. To be honest, like right now we might see, oh, there are so big criminal murder cases, all these cases happening in the Supreme Court here or there, but to be honest, the real work of a criminal lawyer starts at the district court level. So if in case you wish to be a good successful criminal lawyer, knowing the nitty-gritties, all in between stuff, then you should have your internships as uh, in a district court under a lawyer who has a good practice, and definitely learn through the practical aspect. Go to the court, see how the examination is done, how cross is done, what kind of questions are being asked, what are the evidences that are being submitted, what is the procedure to submit an evidence also. Now with the electronic like we have moved into an electronic world, so how is an electronic evidence admissible in the court of law? So you should understand these small aspects from the most practical experience, and the most practical experience for a criminal lawyer is in the district court. So you should have the maximum internships there, because afterwards it is just the appellant stage. The high court is an appellant body for a criminal case, so is the Supreme Court. So that is where I guess you should focus your energy on.
That's really valuable advice that you've given, Sakshi, that start at the district court, because the tendency for law students is to go to the high court or the
High Court
Supreme
and
Court.
Supreme.
But the criminal matter, as rightly put by you, the evidence collection is something that, and cross examination and all of that procedural aspects you learn at the district court itself. So, Sakshi, that was really valuable advice from Ankita, where she has told you to not only start interning at a district court, but also familiarize yourself with the basic laws, criminal laws of our country, which means that you should have a sound foundation in criminal law. You should be able to cite the key judgments in criminal law, because that is something that will also be checked by your senior when you go and practice in the criminal courts. Another thing that you should keep in mind is that gradually build up to a level where you, in your fourth or fifth year, you start interning with stalwarts like Mr. Siddharth Luthra, Ms. Rebecca John, and the top criminal lawyers of this country, to understand the nitty-gritties of criminal law practice at the appellate level as well. But being more aware of the criminal law jurisprudence in this country would definitely help you not only in your internships but also securing a job once you graduate, and finally developing your own independent legal practice if you would wish to do so. Also, I think one thing that every student should answer is that for themselves is that why they want to become a criminal lawyer, why they want to become a corporate lawyer, because the skill set is usually the same. It is just customization of knowing certain laws better than
Hmm.
others. but you should really introspect. There's nothing unique that you can do to become a criminal lawyer as opposed to a corporate lawyer. It's just that your exposure to criminal law should be much more as compared to your peers, as opposed to if you would like to become a corporate lawyer. So those are some of the tips that Ankita and I would happily want you to consider. Then there's a question by Anushka, and we have
Mhm.
so many questions today, Ankita. So you are pretty popular among the legal community, and I'm so happy that we're getting these questions. So Anushka has asked a question, which I'm going to read verbatim. The COVID-19 pandemic has reduced internship opportunities for students drastically, which makes it extremely difficult for them to build a great CV. Could you please suggest ways to seek internships and do them from home in a way that it does not hinder the ongoing online classes?
Okay, okay. So I believe Anusha, sorry if I'm not
Yeah, that's okay. Her name is Anushka. Yeah,
Anushka. So I'm guessing Anushka is also a student of Jindal, if that is how it is. So
probably we don't have a way to know that, but
okay,
go on.
Acha, okay. Sorry. Anusha, what I would suggest that irrespective of the situation which is there, there are always online internships which are available, and right now there are a lot of online internships which you can take on. So, if you go do a thorough search on the internet, you will find a lot of people, lot of law firms, lot of lawyers offering online internship. So I don't know what your area if you have any specific area which you're looking for internship, but there are definitely a lot of research-based internship. There are a lot of in-houses and lawyers who are looking for. Internshala is one place where you can definitely look for internships. And trust me, there are people who are still in need for interns who wish to have a helping hand and are happy to like teach the interns. So you can do that, and in the event your college is also starting, then I don't think so that it still hampers your ability or your keenness to learn. So there are internships which are flexible working hours which are still available. So if you do a search, one place I definitely know is Internshala and Indeed and Locktopus, which are offering online internship. There are a lot of people who have enrolled there looking for interns. So you should definitely go check it out.
Yes, I think that's fair, and that's something you've repeated a couple of times through this
Yeah.
webinar. Another thing is to get personally in touch with lawyers on LinkedIn, because many a
Hmm.
times they post opportunities directly. You can
Directly,
follow the
yes, yes.
pages of law firms and chambers on LinkedIn and find out, use the filter on LinkedIn to find out internships and jobs, and you will certainly get them. And also, you could look at international opportunities, because now it's a virtual world, and if
Yeah.
not in India, then elsewhere you could look for these opportunities. Though there's a reduction in the amount of opportunity that you're going to get, but you have to actively look for it. And it's not that those opportunities do not exist,
Do
as
not
Ankita
exist.
rightly
Yeah.
said, that today many of my friends and colleagues are writing books and chapters and contributing chapters in books and writing for academic journals, because they also want to use their downtime effectively, and they're all looking for interns. So it is not that people are not looking for interns, but you need to really sort of get in touch with them, actively look for it. One thing is clear, nobody is going to come to you unless, of course, your college is helping you get those internships. I'm personally involved in the internship process for our students at the Global Law School, and largely open the Global University, and we have really actively worked at getting them internships. So there are people who are looking for interns, and you will get an internship if you look at it at the right places. As Ankita said, you have so many platforms that are dedicated for this purpose, and LinkedIn is something that you can actively use. Send a private message, a simple message, a customized message to a lawyer, and probably he or she will look at your curriculum vitae and offer you an internship. So, but do not bombard them with follow-up emails and messages, because they wouldn't have the time to look at it. Just send a small message with your curriculum vitae, and I'm sure anybody would at least take a look at your CV. and offer you something which is appropriate to your skills. Um, One of our attendees, Sunil, now he's asking you a question on taxation, and he's asking that he wants to practice. He's in third year. No, he's in second year of the 3-year law degree at one of the institutes, and he would like to practice in taxation, but he's not sure if it's the correct decision. So, of course, Sunil, we can't tell you what to do, but we can tell you some things that can help you decide whether you should work as a tax lawyer or not. Over to you, Ankita. What is your suggestion to Sunil?
So Sunil, I'm guessing if you're in your second year of 3-year course and you are very keen on being a tax lawyer, so I'm very sure that you would have completed your basic course on taxation in your law school, and that's how your interest develops. And if in case you haven't, but then that is the most important thing that you should do is complete a course on the basic tax law, which is offered in your law school. Secondly, while we are currently in the pandemic, you should look for opportunities in understanding tax law at the practical front. And since you're talking about taxation field, we are not limited to law firms only right now while dealing with tax law. You can also apply at a lot of CA firms. You can apply with CAs also individual, because at the end, the specialized tax professionals are the CAs as well. Because right now it is more important for you to learn tax on a practical field, put it on your CV so that tomorrow, if you wish to apply to a boutique tax firm, they know that where all you have learned, where all you have interned, what all practical knowledge you have gained. So and trust me, CAs or CA firms are happy to have law interns as well, because there is never any demarcation. Oh, in a CA firm only a BCom student can come, and in a law firm only a like a tax person is not allowed. So definitely you have a big pool of people who can help you on that front. Then tomorrow, if you're looking at law firms who are specialized into tax law, then there is Nishit Desai, which I know for sure, and Shireen has also worked there. And then there are big fours also, wherein a lot of law students work. So that is one aspect which you can look forward to. So and what you can do is you can do a lot of research on your own while you're at home right now. You can publish articles. There are online publishing websites which take up articles from law students. So maybe there are a lot of law tax reforms which have been done recently by the government in light of the pandemic. So you should start writing, researching, publishing it online. There are a lot of free sites which do that. So all of this will help you build your CV in terms of the niche area of tax law that you have, and this will help you in the long run. So these are my two advices: that don't stick to the law firm aspect on the tax. You have a bigger pool on the other front. And second is try researching, writing articles, publishing them online to help you build your CV for the future.
That's amazing insight. So there are the last two questions that I'm going to take now. One from Dr. Jetling. He has a question. He or she, I'm sorry, Dr. Jetling has a question, wherein the question that is being asked is that what are the inequalities of a lawyer who is practicing at the grassroots level or a corporate lawyer? So I think what is being pointed as at is the qualities that a lawyer should possess. Yes.
Shireen, sorry, your
What are
screen
some
was.
of the qualities that a lawyer should possess? Is a question by Dr. Jetling for you.
Okay. So thank you for the question, sir. I guess what first important thing is that you should be positive enough of whatever work you're doing, be it corporate law, be it litigation, be it tax, any other field, or be it even into the research field. Like as lawyers also, we don't get everything at the first go what we want, so we need to be determined itself to like to achieve what we want. Second is you need to be a thorough reader. So to be honest, at times people who are not lawyers, they get scared. Oh, kitna, like how big is that book? You have to read this entire book to understand. So still, jokes apart, but it is important for you to know your law. You need to know the fine print of the statute, because if you have to be a successful lawyer, you need to know what advice you're giving, and that comes by reading the law. So you need to know, you need to be well aware of the changes in the law. You need to keep on reading and updating yourself with the current affairs. There's so many changes which have happened in different aspects of law recently. So one, as a practicing lawyer, be it in any field of law, you need to keep yourself updated with the changes, because you might advise a client on some aspects which could exist 2 months back, and the government would have changed it like maybe last week only. So you need to be updated on that. So these are the two main things that you need to be well aware to be a good successful lawyer, be it any field of law.
Yes, that's amazing. Perseverance all the way to become a good lawyer. Uh, Sarah Arora, one of her attendees, has asked two questions. Firstly, she would like to know if doing a company secretary course along with your BBA LLB honors degree helps you in becoming a better corporate lawyer. And the second question that she's asked of you is that when you're applying for your first internship, you do not have any other qualification rather than a high school degree. So how do you secure that first internship? So these two questions.
So first question, if you're a CS and you're doing LLB, definitely it is a added advantage that you're a CS, because as I said that if you're doing a due diligence, if you're doing a corporate transaction, your client might be the same type of client. It would be a private limited, it would be a partnership firm. So you know a lot of stuff beforehand from your CS work. So definitely it's a good option that you have taken, that you're pursuing your LLB after CS. So definitely it is an add-on factor. And how about applying for the first internship? So I'm sure when you're applying for your first internship, it would be after your first semester of your law school. So you wouldn't have any other experience, but what you should do rather is, while you're making an application, you should list down the courses that you have done. If you're in a BLLB course, then I'm sure there is not much of law courses that you have done. You might have done only torts or maybe contracts, depending upon your law school. But similarly with a 3-year course also. So don't be too ambitious that I should get the first internship as my best internship. It is always a learning curve. So try getting a internship, if you're a CS and an LLB, try getting an internship with maybe someone who deals a lot of CS work itself, because these people also have a lot of NCLT matters. I know people who are CS and they have NCLT matters as well on the CS aspect. So you can do that. Don't be disheartened of the fact that my first internship would not be great and that would continue. Your first will still be a good option, but it's just about applying. You keep on applying, you keep on customizing your application. As Shireen just mentioned, that maybe since you're a CS, you highlight on that aspect of yours in your application. You show that you have experience or you have practical knowledge on the CS front, and then you make an application. So there is nothing like that that you don't have anything on your CV. You have the CS aspect while making your application. So you could
Sure.
highlight on that aspect also.
That is very important. And but there's one thing that we should tell them, that in a law firm you have company secretaries which help you with certain
Yes,
aspects of the due diligence process,
yes,
and ultimately you can need the practice as a lawyer or as a CS. But the
completely.
knowledge does not go away. I mean, it really comes handy when you are sort of
Never.
dealing with
Knowledge never
corporate
goes away.
transactions.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there are a couple of questions about IPR and international law, and I would like to deal with them in summary. So Meghna is asking that she's done an elective on IPR and international law. Will that help her in getting opportunities in law firms? And Akshita has asked us about about the application process for Jindal, and Kushi had asked us that why should she join Jindal Global Law School as opposed to any other law school in India. So the first question is, doing an elective in IPR international law, what are the opportunities in law firms and in-house?
Okay, Khushi, as I mentioned earlier, there are boutique law firms. There are a lot of boutique IPR law firms which specialize. There's Anand and Anand. There's Solomon. There's Roy and Co. There's Solomon. There are some law firms whose IPR divisions are really great. Since you are keen on IPR or you've recently done an elective on IPR, you should channelize your energy on researching on some of the law firms who specialize in IPR aspect. And maybe in your CV, you can highlight about your recent completion of the course, stating what all you have learned and you would want to apply this at the practical level. So this shows your keen interest to the partner also where you're applying that, okay, the student has got this theoretical knowledge and it would be helpful for the law firm to have her on board, help them with some research skills and stuff like that. So that is one added advantage you could have from your course to secure an IPR based internship. So that is how you can go about it. And second question, Shireen, sorry, hi.
Yes, Akshita was asking about the Jindal application process, so I'll just deal with it. So,
Yeah,
Akshita,
sure.
basically for a Jindal Global Law School admission, there is a university-wide examination. There's a competitive examination that you need to take, which is called the LSAT. It's the Indian LSAT. For other schools of Jindal, I would urge you to kindly go to the website of OP Jindal Global University and get in touch with the admissions team to guide you further with respect to the application process. And I would request you to do it quickly because this is the admission season and we're starting with our freshers batch in September 2020, and the academic session is actually starting in August. So most of the admissions are something that are taking place. I think there's another round of LSAT that will happen. So I would urge you to quickly go and check the website, get in touch with the admissions team, and find out the opportunities in the courses that you would like to apply to. Finally, Khushi has asked us, and I would like to club it with the question that I want to ask on behalf of all the attendees who are law aspirants. That
Mhm.
how should they choose law school to pursue their legal career? So, what are the things they should look in a potential law school? And Khushi specifically wants to know, and generally I do deal with these questions in the webinar because it seems a bit like something that shouldn't be dealt with, but because somebody specifically is asking, is why should she be joining the Global Law School as opposed to any other law school in India?
So how about deciding your law school? Currently there are a lot of other NLUs which have opened recently. We did not have those many colleges at that point of time. I guess you should do a thorough research about the law schools beforehand before you decide on making application. Most of the NLUs are clubbed into the CLAT examination, whereas there is LSAT, there is Symbiosis entrance exam. You should do a research depending upon faculty as one of the characteristics. Then how has been the placements of the law school in the past? Then is there any is the law school very prompt in terms of promoting extracurricular? Like for example, Jindal has a great support system with respect to moots and debates and other activities. Exchange is something which is a great option at Jindal. So
International collaboration, basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
You should consider these aspects while deciding on law school. Then, at times, people are also keen on not being very far off from their hometown. Like, if you're somewhere in North India, you don't want to go too much, like, you don't want to go South India side. So, maybe that is one aspect you can think also while deciding on the law school bit. But as I mentioned earlier, faculty, how the curriculum is structured, what all facilities do they have, the infrastructure of the college, because at the end you have to stay there for 5 years. Most of the law schools have hostel facilities and you have to be there. So you should see that aspect also. Your comfort is important while you're learning. So you should decide on these factors. Then you should see what all you need to prepare to crack their exams. What has been the cutoff in the previous years for the different exams in the different colleges. As I said, CLAT has the maximum NLUs into it. Apart from NLU Delhi, I believe, it still
Yes.
has a separate exam. So you should see at what cutoff which college rankings go. So that is one way also to decide of which college you want to take. Like you might get Sindhi in your Sindhi exam, and you might get Bhopal from your CLAT exam. Then how do you weigh the two of them? So you see how what all benefits the Bhopal college has. What is the faculty there? What is the best area that they specialize into? How has been the placement? Do they have a good internship background? Where all of the alumni placed? How's the alumni doing? So all of this is there on the internet today. So that is how you can decide. Uh, and what is I forgot the last question. I mean,
So those are no. I think you dealt with both the questions beautifully.
okay.
And the only thing that I would like to add to that answer is that do your research as much as possible and speak to people around you, because you know the word of mouth travels faster than anything
Yeah.
else. You might read hundred things, but you should speak to family, friends, seek guidance from your elders, professors, teachers, counselors, and even your parents. They will really look into it in a much larger perspective, in a much long-term perspective, as opposed to somebody who's just come out of high school or is coming or is graduating uh, from their high school. Another thing that I would like to tell students who are prospective law students is that prepare in advance. So in your 10th standard almost, you should start preparing for these competitive examinations, because year after year they're becoming difficult to crack because of the increase in numbers. Law is today a very flourishing field, and every year more and more people want to enter law school. So to give yourself the best opportunity in terms of joining the best law school in the country, you should be able to prepare well in advance and understand the demand of those examinations. With this, Ankita, I would like to thank you for taking out your time and answering so many of our questions, making us familiar with the process of due diligence. Your journey was personally very exciting to hear about, how you developed yourself into this confident young woman who is an independent legal practitioner today. I've seen you personally in law school, and I have seen you through your journey in a way, and I'm proud to be a witness to that.
Thank
And
you.
we at TOP, Jindal Global University, would like to thank you for coming here and sharing all of your experience with us. It was a gamut of information, a lot of valuable insights, which I'm sure the legal fraternity will appreciate that you shared with us today. And I would urge you to keep coming back whenever you feel that there's more to share, and we would be happy to host you for a number of webinars going through. And another thing that I would like to personally wish you is best of luck with your independent legal practice. I hope your clients grow year after year, and you open up in different cities across India. So good luck to you on that.
Thank you,
To the
Shri.
attendees, thank you for your questions. We received about 35 questions today, and all of those questions had meaning. It had vision, it had hope, it had ambition. And we will meet you next week again with our 16th JGLS Alumni webinar. Week after week, we try and get you a diversity in terms of our topics and in terms of our speakers, and we appreciate your participation week after week. Ankita, your final words.
Thank you, Shireen, for having me here. It was a great platform to share the journey from 2010 till 2020, almost a decade. And yeah, I guess I just would want to say one thing to everyone who's a law student and who's aspiring to be a law student, that just learn, just go with the flow. Don't have a mindset of I can't do this, or I would want to only do this. Let opportunities flow. Let time take you in its lap, and there are so many opportunities. If you don't grab one, there is another always waiting for you. So work for it, work hard, and definitely keep, while a lot of us want to be in the corporate law firm, be it in any field, we should be always happy in what we do. So yeah, I guess that matters the most. So yeah, like it's important to work hard and be happy in whatever you do.
That's so nice. That's so wonderful for you to point out that happiness is ultimately what we all are trying to pursue. And on that positive note, I would like to thank all of you and have a nice evening. The webinar for today has ended. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.